In his book, Mere Christianity, C.S. Lewis wrote this about pride. He wrote, "There is one vice of which no man in the world is free, which everyone in the world loathes when he sees it in someone else, and of which hardly any people ever imagine that they are guilty themselves. There is no fault which makes a man more unpopular, and no fault which we are more unconscious of in ourselves. And the more we have it in ourselves, the more we dislike it in others." Ouch. And then on the flip side, here's a quote from St. Augustine. He wrote, "Should you ask me what is the first thing in religion, I should reply, the first, second, and third thing therein is humility." Well, there you go. Pride bad, humility good. Let's all go home now, right? Last week, I started a series within these Timely Word videos, and I'm calling it The Lost Art of Friendmaking. Because of the pressures and the habits that we've gained from our culture, we really do tend to struggle with just plain relating well with each other. And the church should be the place of the strongest and the healthiest relationships because we all have the Spirit of Christ in us, right? But then why are so many people leaving churches? Because they don't fit in or because of difficult relationships. We, the followers of Jesus, need to put time and effort into relearning how to make and how to keep gospel-strong friendships. And so I'm going to spend a lot of time the next several weeks in the book of Proverbs because there is so much wisdom there about how to relate well with one another in godly ways. So first up, Proverbs 29, verse 23. "One's pride will bring him low, but he who is lowly in spirit will obtain honor." What exactly are pride and humility? At its root, pride is self-centeredness and self-sufficiency and self-exaltation. It's having an opinion about yourself that doesn't always match up with reality. Pride is all about trying to manipulate others into giving you honor that you don't always necessarily deserve. Humility, on the other hand, means you have an attitude in your heart which is not worried about trying to gain honor for yourself. And so the dirty little secret of Proverbs is that when you strive for honor for yourself, you end up proud and dishonored in the eyes of others. But when you have a humble attitude, then you end up gaining honor. A man's pride will bring him low, but a humble spirit will obtain honor. The Hebrew word for pride here literally comes from a word that means high, and the word for humble means lowly. So you legitimately could translate this verse, the high person will be made low, but the low in spirit will gain honor. Now, pride and humility are never qualities that just exist in a person on their own by themselves. They are always relational qualities. They describe how you carry yourself or speak or act in relation to other people. In Proverbs 25, verses 6 and 7, you can see this in practice. It says, "Do not put yourself forward in the king's presence or stand in the place of the great. For it is better to be told, 'Come up here,' than to be put lower in the presence of a noble." And Jesus taught this very same lesson. He gave a scenario in Luke chapter 14, verses 7 through 11. And he put it this way: "When you are invited by someone to a wedding feast, do not sit down in a place of honor, lest someone more distinguished than you be invited by him. And he who invited you both will come and say to you, 'Give your place to this person.' And then you will begin with shame to take the lowest place. But when you are invited, go and sit in the lowest place, so that when your host comes, he may say to you, 'Friend, move up higher.' Then you will be honored in the presence of all who sit at the table with you. For everyone who exalts himself will be humbled, and he who humbles himself will be exalted." You see, our human natures usually have trouble with this very principle. Every one of us lives life with an inner narration going on inside of our heads. We enter a room filled with chairs, and our first thought is to think through, where do I want to sit? Which seat will make me feel the most comfortable in this group of people? Or we participate in a group conversation, And that inner narration is always thinking, what can I say that will make people think well of me? Or what do I not want to say because I don't want people to laugh at me or look down at me? Every time we interact with other people, the temptation is to spend most of our time focused on me. If you want to have healthy relationships, if you want to make friends and keep friends, if you want to relate with people in a Christ-like manner, the first thing you need to learn to do is get out of yourself. Ultimately, that is the very heart of what it means to be humble. It's been said that humility is not thinking less of yourself. Humility is thinking of yourself less. And I think that is actually a very biblical perspective. And I'd like to turn to Paul for a minute. In Philippians chapter 2, verses 3 and 4, Paul gives us one of the most profound applications of gospel living in all of his writing. And I'm going to read this from the New American Standard Version. This is Philippians 2, verses 3 and 4. He says, "Do nothing from selfishness or empty conceit, but with humility of mind, regard one another as more important than yourselves. Do not merely look out for your own personal interests, but also for the interests of others." See, I think Paul really puts his finger on it. This is the key to relationships, the foundation. He makes it sound so simple. Stop thinking about yourself so much and start thinking about others instead. And we all know that that's not really easy. It means when you enter into that room filled with chairs, what would happen if your first thought was, where can I sit that would make other people feel comfortable? Or if you're in a group conversation, what would change about your words if your inner narration was saying, what can I say in this group that will bring encouragement and growth to other people? Can you see how powerful this concept of humility is? Can you see how it serves building relationships rather than building walls? This goes back to the principle that Paul says in Romans 12:10. Outdo one another in showing honor. But how does this flow out of the gospel of grace in Christ? Well, when you've put your faith and your trust in Christ, you no longer have to worry about yourself because Christ on the cross has already paid for all of your guilt, and he's already covered all of your shame. And Christ has already given you all honor, eternal honor, far more honor than you deserve. And because those things are true, you don't have to fight to gain honor for yourself anymore. Your honor comes by being united with Christ. And that frees you up to think about how you can show honor to others. So what do you think? Can we work on getting out of ourselves when we relate to each other? With humility of mind, regard one another as more important than yourselves. I guarantee you, the more you get out of yourself, the more you will enjoy your relationships.